Are live. This is Lumination. It is Wednesday, May 1st, over here in Las Vegas, early afternoon. Well, late morning. I felt obliged to check in. I like doing things live better than recordings for whatever reason. Anyway, I felt obliged to comment on themes we've been discussing for weeks, months, years. If you've been hanging around at this channel for a long time, you already know about the Pluto cycle and how we are now entering a 20-year journey of revolution, upheaval, potential chaos, massive political, societal changes across the world. It happened 250 years ago, especially reminded by, hello, Anthony. It's nice to have some company. Thank you. It happened 250 years ago, as we've discussed many times. And it was, let's say, marked as a timestamp in human history with the Declaration of Independence and a few years later, the United States Constitution. And here we are again, 250 years later. The same show is repeating, but it's actually happening on a global scale now because the themes that were established 250 years ago have now become global simply because global trade, communication, and transportation have expanded dramatically in the last 250 years. Same thing with global population, global knowledge, intelligence, capabilities. Everything has expanded. One of the things that seems to have contracted is our consciousness, our ability to be, let's say, more loving, more aware about how beautiful this existence can be, and how fragile it can be, and how easy it is to destroy it all. So I want to move on to the next theme, which is already phasing out, but we talked about it over the last couple of weeks, where the Mars cruising through the 12th house globally, Neptune Pisces energy, was going to trigger a lot of irrational, chaotic, insane violence exploding all over the world. And it would reach a crescendo when Mars conjoins Neptune at 28 degrees, which is exactly what happened a couple of weeks ago. And now you're seeing it all over the world news. Revolutions, violence, everywhere, anywhere, for any reason. People just acting out because they have no other form of expression. There's been so much compression for so long that people behave like trapped animals, and they lose things like rational dialogue or negotiations or peaceful compromises, and instead they just lash out in violence. I totally empathize. I totally understand it. The next thing we discussed was the pivotal point when Mars would cross the threshold from Pisces to Aries. Very, very different energy. Hello, who's that? Something's beeping. Hello, Necessary. Hello, Lion Lazen. That sounds to me like you're having a chill time, lazing around, lying down, enjoying life. Good for you. Excuse me. I still have a lot of allergies, and I take medications. So I took a break. Give me a second. I'm up here at a little tiny park. I don't really have a way I can show you. It's a tiny little park up by a school way up in the mountain here. And I sometimes come here for refuge because it has grass. It actually has green grass and trees, and it's irrigated and it's landscaped, and it's right next to a little school for little kids. And so I came here just a short while ago, and I discovered that they'd put a lot of work into maintenance because the place gets vandalized very regularly. But earlier this morning, it seems like they mowed the grass. So you have that rich, succulent green grass smell when it's freshly cut and all the natural aroma of the grass comes through. There's no lingering smell of gasoline or electric, mowers or anything. The trees are beautiful. The grass is beautiful. And I've just been inhaling it as much as I could before I started this video. Anyway, the next thing I wanted to discuss was the transit over the cusp between Pisces and Aries. Very, very different energies. So during the Pisces theme, which of course is still very strong, we have Saturn there and Neptune there. We're witnessing like betrayal, deception, lies, corruption, and every despicable perversion you can imagine on Earth by human behavior becoming fully exposed because Saturn is holding the world accountable. And it is disgusting. The stench is mind-boggling. But the beauty is you got to reveal it to heal it. So that's where we're heading now. Mars has just moved across Neptune. And when Mars was conjoining Neptune, it basically translated into irrational, completely berserk, out of control, insane violence. Classic example are the wars in Middle East and Eastern Europe, all across Sahel, Africa, over in China. Massive disruptions. Of course, all the violence here in the United States erupting. And that was the seed for what's happening next. The next thing that is happening, of course, is Mars just crossed into Aries, where it's going to transit a cluster of the North Node in Aries, Chiron in Aries, what was the other one? Mercury and I forgot. Anyway, it's going to trigger more violence. But this time it's blunt, in your face, directed, deliberate violence. It's the violence of a person or a people who feel, I would call it justifiable anger, but it gets to the point where it's justifiable rage. When you look at Mars in Aries at the 0 degree and the 1 degree point, the easiest way for me to describe the energy is just imagine a newborn babe. It doesn't know what it is, who it is, what it wants, what it's here for, or anything. It's just alive. And its main purpose is to survive. And anything uncomfortable or disruptive to that paradigm of survival meets with fierce resistance. Typically, an upset baby will cry, rage, scream, and lash out at anything that it finds disruptive. And that's what I believe is happening right now. In other words, the eruptions of violence that exploded and came alight over the last 3 months or so are now fully ignited, and gasoline is being added to these flames. And so it's turning into a raging kind of inferno energy, and it's spreading very, very rapidly across the world. You've probably noticed if you watch the stuff that I watch. So I wanted to get that out there. So in other words, everything is exactly as it should be. And why is that so? Because it can't be any other way. Things are the way they are. We've talked many times about, gravity, electromagnetic influences of all the planets on themselves and each other and humanity itself. And it's just doing what it does. Personally, from where I am right now, I'm basically acting as an observer who's mostly going, yep, I told you so. Yep, just as I said. Yep, okay, Mars did that. Neptune did that. Saturn did that. Chiron's doing that. North Node's doing that. Yep. Told you so. And then kablam, there it is. It all plays out. The beauty of the astrology, the way we do it here, is that we can get a sort of a glimpse almost like a weather forecast of what we can expect coming down the road. So, yeah, we've got the Mars thing going on. So it's an extremely inflamed, raging type of energy. And it's happening with all walks of life. The most obvious ones are the main headlines, where you can see in the United States, of course, all these raging protests at the universities, and they're now turning, oh God, excuse me, turning into full-on riots, very violent, irrational riots. Remember, irrational, we've still got a huge hangover from Mars in Pisces at 29 degrees, okay? As we cross into Mars in Aries at 0 degrees. So that energy of irrational and deliberate violence is not going to dissipate anytime in the immediate future. I think it's going to amplify personally. And everybody who's up for it is, they are, let's say, they're justifying their anger and their rage. And I don't blame them. You know, whatever side you're on, they feel offended on whatever it is that they want to do to get to the point where they're committing extreme violence. I mean, it's a scary thing. I've been on the receiving end of a lot of violence, but I've only ever dissipated violence in self-defense in extreme conditions. That's just how I'm built. I'm not a predator. I'm not a what you would call it, someone who precipitates violence for the sake of it. Anyway, next I wanted to talk about the Aries stuff. So that's going to be a general theme for many months to come, all right? The North Node is still there in Aries. Chiron is still there, a bleeding, aching wound in Aries. Everybody on Earth right now is feeling some kind of deep, bitter, angry scar about how their sovereign self has been undermined, offended, and betrayed. Look what's happening in Washington, D.C. There is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's raging, furious now, and she's not holding back. And I don't blame her. She's a politician on the right, conservative, common sense type of spectrum. And she's calling out this guy, Mike Johnson, who's supposedly in the same camp, but has turned out to be a complete, utter traitor to his own people. So that's taking up a few headlines right now. I really empathize with Marjorie Taylor Greene myself, but I've also listened about how Donald Trump feels that Mike Johnson is doing the best job that he can in the circumstances. But the reason why I'm not taking too many sides or pushing, my heart is with Marjorie, but I also acknowledge that Donald is a experienced wheeler dealer on the global stage, and he understands the art of the deal. And there are some situations where you do not have a lot of leverage or power, and you have to make the best of what you can. And I think that's what Donald is arguing in favor of Mike Johnson. The thing is, from everything I've been learning, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Mike Johnson are both very, very close to Donald. So it puts Donald in an awkward position, and so he's shrouding his comments right now. On the other side of the spectrum, the so-called left wing are kind of going berserk at the moment, as you probably noticed, because they're starting to realize that their agenda is in serious jeopardy. Everything that they do to try and undermine the right wing comes back with serious backlash, and things just get worse and worse and worse. So we'll see what happens. Okay, so the next thing I want to move on to is the Taurus energy. So we've gone Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. The sun is now firmly in the Taurus season, and we also have Jupiter there. And we also have Uranus there, and they're going to be, we've already got the Uranus Jupiter conjunction, and it's sending wild gyrations in the global financial world. Are we going to crash? Are we going to implode? Is it going to be a new glorious day for some people while other people implode? We'll see. A lot of fakery has been exposed in the global financial markets, and the United States supremacy is under severe threat, as we know, and some other players, I'll just say them, like Russia, China, and the BRICS, they are coalescing to try and form a counter energy to the United States dollar. So that is a form of warfare. In fact, in some ways, it is the biggest, most dangerous, most violent war going on in the world right now. It is the foreign exchange market between the United States dollar and the rest of the world. So right now, economically and politically speaking, China is imploding. You're not going to see that on mainstream. The Chinese propaganda machine is working full-time at maximum power to push out the good news about how amazing China is and how they're going to take over the world with all their battleships and jets and million-man army and so on and so on. The thing is, their whole agenda is based on a maniacal, megalomaniac, crackpot dictator who believes he can control the world, control nature, control billions of people just by his spoken word. And I think there's a lot of people across the world who are thinking like, we don't really have to go along with this. I look at China as a massive entity that has been infected with a massive cancerous tumor, the CCP, and it is heading towards a supernova moment where everything goes. Financially, they're in extreme difficulties, and it's only going to get worse. There's no way they can salvage their demise at this point. So what we're doing is observing the decline and ultimate implosion of China, the CCP. Already 800, 900, just call it a billion. There's already 1 billion people in China who are already feeling the pain of the implosion. That translates into poverty or extreme poverty. They don't have bankruptcy protection laws. The whole country and billions of people are riddled with irreconcilable debt. It's never going to be figured out. And so typically, again, desperate people do desperate things. Mr. Ping, who's basically declared that he's in charge of all this, he's going to go supernova. He's going to go ultraviolet, because that's his only remaining option to claim his status in world history as being the most important, powerful leader in world history. The way he's going to do that is with extreme violence, with his war machine. Every penny inside the Chinese economy is funneled towards the Chinese war machine, and that money is siphoned out of the Chinese people. There's a billion Chinese people who do not like Mr. Ping or the CCP, but they have no power. They have no constitution. They have no rights. They have no free speech. They have no First Amendment. They have no Second Amendment. They do not have arms or the ability to defend or protect themselves. They're screwed. So that's going on right now, and it's going to show up in the financial markets. America is doing its own form of self-destruction with its bizarre financial behavior. It's a collusion between the U.S. Federal Reserve and the United States Treasury. We all know this. So it's going to drag out and it's going to drag out. It's going to be like a long, slow death spiral. It's a dissipation of power that's inevitable because of the astronomical amounts of debt that have been incurred. And it goes for the whole world. There are very, very few places on earth that are not riddled and saddled with crippling debt. China and the United States are way, way at the top, but there's many other countries that are in parallel situations. Luckily, there is a counterbalance happening, and it's a very revolutionary energy. Thank you to Uranus and Taurus, amplified by Jupiter in Taurus. And it is to do with the world of cryptocurrencies, where one of the most fundamental primary themes of crypto world is privacy. Crypto means secret, okay? Private, cryptographic, anyway, I'm not an expert at these things. I'm learning as I go along. But the world of private money is the enemy of the public money. In other words, the Federal Reserve. So as you know, the United States Federal Reserve Bank, United States Treasury, the United States government, and all the big name retail banks are terrified of crypto. And the global elites, you know all of them by name: United Nations, World Health Organization, IMF, BIS, US Fed, CDC, WHO, there's a whole list of them: BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, Blackstone, and others. Those are the global elites. World Economic Forum, all of them are deeply vested in perpetuating and maintaining their self-appointed supreme power. They actually believe their own bullshit. But what's interesting, again, you got to reveal it to heal it. The bullshit is so disgusting and the stench is so bad that it's actually covering the whole of planet Earth right now. And countries everywhere are realizing that they have been infected by what amounts to a globalized tyrannical agenda to create a single world communist regime. That's it. That's all it is. It's just a repeat of an old theme on the understanding, their belief that by having this unilateral control by a bunch of people who think they're better than you and me, they think they're going to make the world a beautiful place. A beautiful place translates, as far as they're concerned, into a debt farm and a slave camp. They want to solidify the debt farm and formalize the slave camp in a way that it works for them at the expense of you and me. In other words, I am a debt cow and I am being farmed. I am a debt slave. I'm a part of a slave camp and I'm being farmed. And that energy is extracted through the global banking system, through very powerful tools and mechanisms. One of them is inflation. And the new one that they're hoping to institute is the central bank digital currencies. It sounds beautiful. I mean, they're trying to make it sound like it's crypto. In fact, it's a digital prison. Okay? We've talked about all these themes before, but I just kind of wanted to get it off my chest, put it all into one short little, as compressed as I can into one little video. The reason I'm doing it today is because we're at this point of critical mass where Mars is going from Pisces into Aries. So we're at this cusp energy. We have a lot of compression right now with the planets. There's all this Aries stuff going on. We've got the Taurus stuff going on. We still got heavy Pisces influence. Anyway, and a lot of cusp energy there, on the 29 to 0 to 1 degree marks. For example, Pluto. In a couple of days, Pluto is going to go retrograde for months. It's going to go back through Aquarius to 0 degrees and then back into Capricorn, okay, right before the United States elections. So guess what's going to happen? It's the corruption is going to intensify and magnify as the global elites and the Washington status quo tries desperately to hold on to its power while at the same time, we the people are trying to reclaim our individual sovereign wealth, our individual power. It's a war. Headlines, multiple headlines coming around across the world now. It's basically civil war. There's civil, not just the United States, but a lot of countries. It's a similar theme, and it's what we would expect given the current astrology. Yay! Isn't it fun? The good thing is that we get some advance notice. If you just think of my little channel, this is sort of like a little weather channel, then you don't have to take it personally. You don't have to take the channel personally. You can think I'm full of BS if you want. I don't really care. And it's up to you what you do with the information. I'm just sharing information that I study for myself every day because I have to, because my body has turned out to be very sensitive to, I guess you could call it, geomagnetic or spiritual or heavenly influences. I am as susceptible to the positives and the negatives as anybody and everybody else. Necessary, we were just going to talk about the Pluto transit. Well, it is upon us, but we're going to go through a very bumpy time for the rest of this year, 2024, because Pluto is still effectively on the cusp. So it kind of doesn't know what it's doing with itself. The insanity coming from the global elites is going to amplify to the point of desperation. Again, desperate people do desperate things. They're going to, but the way I see it, they're going to do anything and everything they can to hold on to power. And a lot of that behavior will be what I would call despicable, evil, treacherous, monstrous, godless. And at the same time, we the people are getting to the point of outrage where we're saying enough is enough. We don't want to comply. Do not comply. We do not comply with the global elite's agenda. I don't. I'm taking sides. I like to pretend I'm neutral, but I'm not. Anyway, I've been here way longer than I expected to be. So I hope some of you enjoy this. I hope it gets around to a few more people. Share it as much as you can. And I'll see you again very soon, okay? I'm going to, let's see, how do I check out of here? Let's see, I'm going to close the button here. Yeah, I'm going to stop streaming. Yes, okay, stop. There we go.